Morning all, welcome back to the channel, and this week something slightly different. Don't adjust your set. For a while now we wanted to talk to you about the cars that I owned during lockdown, so pour yourself a cup of tea. This is going to be a bit of a blog. So rewind a bit to 2014 and I picked up for £500 a 1975 Austin Allegro. I had that car for 5 years, went all over the country with it, did little bits and bobs to it, restored it, had some bodywork done, rebuilt the engine, loved that car. But unfortunately in 2019 my finances weren't very good and I was forced to sell it. So another reason for getting rid of the Allegro was my parents unfortunately were suffering financially at the time, as was I, and they'd helped me out with a bit of money previously so that I could get the bodywork done. Obviously I felt I had to repay them, so that car went up for sale. I looked around for a little while and then I found a Ford Sierra, and the reason for that purchase was that my grandparents had one when I was a very young boy. I remember that car from the mid-80s, it was would have been a brand new car back then. Loved it to bits. So I was always really keen to try the water with that, as it were, and I found one locally, went to have a look at it, and it was a pretty solid example. So I ended up buying that for about £1,200. Had that for a couple of months and then started playing up. Unfortunately, there was an issue with the carb and it would cut out a junction, so I lost my confidence in that car quite quickly. So the Sierra never really gelled with me, and I didn't really want a problematic car. I just wanted something I could get in and drive. So I started looking around for something a bit more modern, and on the way to work one morning I drove past the garage and saw this 2001 VW Lupe, a car that I've always thought was quite cool. And I have actually had one previously, so I went to have a look at it, and the thing was immaculate. I mean, it didn't need anything doing to it other than the clutch and the cam belt, which I had done because they needed doing. There was no clutch travel left on it, but I bought the car anyway because I could see the potential in it. And I actually had that car for the best part of a year. In the meantime, while I had an empty garage, a friend of mine had come to me at work, said his girlfriend had a classic car, she was thinking about selling it, but did you want to rent the garage out because she'd lost her garage space? I thought that's pretty cool, just to be able to have a classic car at home, maybe not necessarily mine, but something I could look at and maybe even do things to it should the owner want. So I ended up having that car back at mine for about a week, and within a week I'd phoned up and said, do you want to sell this thing? That was my Seat 127. So the Seat 127 was a great little car which I nicknamed Minty. I had that car for about 14 months. I wouldn't have got rid of it if it hadn't been for finances, but I'll come back to that. So I bought the car for a friend of mine. This car had come over from Malta, bone dry, rock solid, never had any welding, needed a bit of cosmetic work. There was a dent on one of the rear wheel arches and a few stone chips, and the front needed painting. So I eventually had all that work done. I recommissioned it, going under the car. The thing was rock solid, it didn't have an inch of rust on it anywhere. The thing was just like, it was brand new. Just let down by a bit, cosmetics, paint work, a bit of interior trim needed replacing, a few things missing, dented bumpers, just general wear and tear of a car that was over 40 years old. Actually ended up being on Steph's channel, I Drive a Classic. So I had that car for a good few months, and that car with the Lupo came to my new home, which I moved into in March 2020, the start of lockdown. So while in the garage I did a few little things to it. I changed the rear bumper, I got a few bits from Spain and Italy, new old stock parts. I recommissioned it, changed the gearbox, the engine oil, the transmission, thorough flush of the cooling system, because I did plan to keep the car, and in and out going to work I was using it daily. It was really a good little car, but after about 14 months and the fact that I'd done everything I wanted to do with the car, I started to get itchy feet again. I was looking at my finances and this Renault 5 came up. Let's just say the Renault was cool, but it had a few issues, mainly the torsion bars, which I just wasn't in a position to repair or replace at the time. The car was a bit lopsided. This car had a bit of history. It had been featured on a television programme called Flipping Bangers, I think on Quest, and that car had a bit of history of overheating. The Renault engines are a bit notorious for being a bit sensitive, and head gaskets are sadly something that go fairly frequently. So this car had a history of that particular fault. But being aware of the head gasket issues and having seen the chaps on Flipping Bangers actually fix the issue, I wasn't put off by that at all. A very honest little car. The car came with loads of spares. What let it down again was cosmetics. It had some original old fiberglass bumpers which had gone a bit matte. But the previous owner had bought all these spares but just not got around to fitting them. So I spent about a month and a half in the garage all through winter, fitting a load of new parts to it and really brightening up the car and making it look spot on. Drove that to work and back a few times. Had issues with the radiator. On doing a coolant change, the filler neck snapped off. So I bought a brand new radiator from Germany, fitted that, bled the system up. That was an absolute pain in the arse. I do not like Renault cooling systems. It's all to do with bleed points and getting all the air trapped air out. It was a nightmare to do, but having spoken to a few guys on the club, one or two suggestions came forward and I managed to get the system bled successfully. But that was a nice little car. The reasons for not keeping that, I just couldn't drive it. The driver's seat didn't go down back further enough. I'm quite a tall chap and my knees were sort of launched under the steering wheel. I didn't feel very comfortable driving the car at all. It was also left-hand drive, not that that puts me off, but that combined with changing gear with the right hand, it just didn't click with me again. Would I have kept that car? Potentially yes, because of the rarity of it, but I need to be able to drive the car, and with my knees under the steering wheel, it just wasn't very comfortable, let alone doing long journeys. But the 6-mile journey to work and back every morning was a bit uncomfortable, so I decided no, it's not for me. Oh, that's cold. Shush. So I put the Renault up for sale with the intention of buying another Allegro. I put the feelers, never say that again, I put the feelers out on the Facebook page that I was actually looking for another Allegro. Projects accepted. And this chap came forward to me, he said, I've got a few, they're in the barn in Salisbury, the barn's being renovated, I've got to get all my cars out, and they're going to be cheap. So I was like, oh, okay, what have you got? He goes, I've got a 2-door Series 3, 1982, russet brown, 2-door, 1300. It's been off the road for a few years, needs general recommissioning, but it's a solid car. I thought, brilliant, let's go and have a look at that. So a friend of mine took me over on the weekend. This car was sat in a barn. The barn was actually an aircraft hangar from World War One. Beautiful place to be inside. Currently in a state of disrepair. The building was needing to be cleared so it could be renovated. So this chap had all these classic cars, including this Allegro. So I picked the best of the bunch, this russet brown 2-door. Had a bit of a natter with him, said, look, what do you want for the car? He goes, £1,000 delivered, it's yours. So I said, yes please. Right, change of seats. I've just come indoors to, this is where I really wanted to be, inside the Allegro. So yeah, the Series 3, I bought that thinking that it was going to be a sort of quick, easy weekend doer-upper, but there were certain things that were ringing alarm bells straight away. First and foremost was the electrics. The wiring loom going to the dash had been spliced. There was a load of broken wires. I struggled quite a lot to try and get all the wires going to the fuse box repaired. As soon as you repair one would bend and break, and things would either work 1 second and then not the next. So really put off by that. When I did get the car finally running and driving, I took it around the block and the thing was knocking, the suspension was banging, something was hanging underneath it. So I very quickly went off the idea of keeping that car. So I put that up for sale, and somebody bought it as an ongoing project. I was very honest about it. I said, look, the car needs recommissioning, it's running and driving, but needs work. So that's now in the hands of somebody else who's going to repair it properly. But where I live at the moment, there's certain issues with the neighbours, and this has been an ongoing problem, unfortunately. I'm not allowed to work in the garage on my cars, which just seems ridiculous. That's really been a downer going through lockdown, having someone moan at me continuously saying, why are you working on your car? And all I want to do when I come home from work on the weekends is just tinker for a few hours in the garage, just get a few bits done. It's my reset headspace time. And to have someone nagging you constantly has been a real downer over the last few months. Yes, anyway, so the Allegro went, and I started to think, do I want a classic car? Because every time I try and get something either goes wrong, it doesn't gel with me, I'm wasting money, and then I've got the arse-ache of the neighbours as well. But I thought, no, sod this. This is my passion. This is me. This is what I enjoy doing. So without sort of looking at, somebody came into work where I work, because I work in the motor factors, and they said, I've got a few classic cars. Do you know anyone who might want to take on a project? And I said, God, here we go again. I said, what have you got? And he goes, I've got a Reliant Kitten. I thought, have you? That's different. So I went to have a look at it. I said, what's the issue with it? He goes, I've restored the chassis. The chassis is almost brand new underneath it. I've done all the brake lines. It runs and drives. I've had a few issues, but I think I've got to the bottom of it now. One thing I can't do is get the brakes bled up. So if you want to drive it home, you're going to have to either fix it there and then or get it recovered. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I can't get a brake pedal. I've changed the shoes, I've changed the cylinders, but I just can't get the car to brake properly. I thought, hey, that doesn't seem right. But he goes, well, the only thing I haven't done is change the flexible brake hoses. I'm like, okay, well, I know that can be an issue sometimes. So I arranged to have the car recover back to mine because it wasn't drivable, obviously. Started looking over the car. Instantly noticed there was an engine oil timing chain leak. I took the radiator out. That was an absolute pig to do for access, but I got the radiator out, got the front of the car off, because you can work through the front grille space on a Reliant kit, and the front grille comes off and you can put hands and tools through the front, and that way I got the radiator out and got the timing chain cover off and replaced the oil seal. So I did that, and I got to the bottom of the braking issue, having bled up the brakes and changed the flexible hoses, which is a pig in situ with the body on. But those who have Reliance will know the chassis that runs under the fiberglass body is very close to each other, so access and getting spanners in there is a bit of a nightmare with the body on. You're really meant to take the body off to work on the brakes on those, or work on the brake hoses anyway. So I started to use that car, driving it to work every day, but then I noticed it would be a pig to start. You'd have to really crank it and crank it and crank it to get it to fire, and then when it would fire, it was noisy. I played with the timing, I played with the carburetor. Nothing I did could get that car to run properly. One of the gears was noisy from the gearbox. The transmission had a hell of a whining first, so I thought that's going to need recommissioning. And then the final nail in the coffin for that was the oil seal repair that I'd done failed again. Started leaking oil yet again from the same place. At that point, I was just totally exhausted with my patience. I thought, this just it clearly isn't meant to be. So I bought a Rover 45. So the Rover, that was really my daily while I was trying to just do up the Seriously Allegro and then the Kitten. So I had that while I had the two other cars. I was using it to go to work and back. Never really had a problem with it, to be honest. I gave 500 quid for it through Facebook Marketplace, and it didn't miss a beat. I suspect the head gasket might have been on the way out, because it was every now and then you'd have to top up the coolant, but there was no sign of any leaks and it never overheated, so go figure. But that was a good little car, that. So I purely sold the Rover due to running costs. That was the only reason I got rid of it. Started looking around for something a bit more economical as a daily, and a friend of mine said to me, have you thought about Fiestas? I thought, well, yes I have, but I can't afford a classic. He goes, no, not classic, something like a Mark IV. So I started looking on Gumtree, as did he. He sent me a couple of links, and this two-door R-Edge 1998 came up locally to me. 50,000 miles from new, full dealer service history. And I spoke to the owner, and he said, it's a car I've just bought for my daughter. She was going to be learning to drive, but she's going on to college. Haven't changed the circumstances. I'm a mechanic, I've just serviced it. It's got full dealer history from new. I want 700 quid for it. I said, will you deliver it for that? He goes, yeah. So he brought it over in the afternoon, and I immediately looked at the car. I thought, this is really, really good. It is what it says on the tin. No rust anywhere, not a blemish, immaculate interior. And I've still got that car to this day, as you've probably seen a couple of videos, those who follow my channel. I've got that car, and that's not going to go anywhere. That's a brilliant, honest little car. Done some miles in that already, and I thoroughly intend to keep that as my daily driver. In the meantime, I found George, my 79 Series 2. He's not going anywhere either. I'm going to finish this car and get it completed. But yeah, you just know when a car's right and when a car's not meant to be. Yep, so that's the cars that got me through lockdown. Thanks ever so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate all the feedback and comments. Until next week, normal service will be resumed. So until then, all the best. See you soon.